the adjacent property too, which is the one in the back where the football fields and where the fields are?
Let's see, I wasn't involved in anything with that adjacent property back there.
Well, we know what that property was once before, don't you?
Well, I've been told that that land was filled back there, and that's pretty common with sandy gravel areas, but I don't know that, I don't know the quality
It
of
was
it.
a cliff dump.
It was the dump,
Okay.
DUMP, in case you want to know. Dump.
I just said dump. Does anybody tell?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask a few side questions of Mr. Lynn, if I could. Could you take us through, I know you've got $2 million for the Richard site, $1.7 million for the removal of the business. I think $268,000 for the 1800 house. Could you kind of tell us about how that's going to be reimbursed by the state? Could you give us some detail on how that would work?
Well, as you can well imagine, the state has formulas for everything. The property is reimbursed to the higher of two appraisals at the time of purchase. So although it's been appraised now, it would have to be appraised again. And if there's any change in the appraisal, that's how the state reimburses the property purchase. For relocation of existing property owners, that comes under the Uniform Relocation Act, which is a different set of formulas depending upon what the business is or residence, as the case may be. And what they look at is reasonable cost to relocate. Reasonable, as you can imagine, is a subjective term, so there's a lot of room for wiggle room in there for debate as to what a reasonable cost is.
Well, the site that you're building on, I believe the two parcels together, is about 37 acres. If I'm not mistaken, the state has a limit of 26 acres for a 600 pupil school that they will reimburse for. Could you explain to us how that limitation has been calculated into the reimbursement?
Well, the 26 acres is for upland, non-wetland soils. I don't know what the division of this property is in terms of wetland versus upland soils. But if there is a significant area that's beyond the 26 acres in the state's formula, then they could potentially look at a penalty in the purchase cost, as there would be a space penalty in the building because the building's too large.
My read of the state statute, the state regulation and statute, is that they include the wetlands in that, so that the wetlands doesn't get backed out of it. I mean, the full 37 acres is what they would treat that. So you have really not done that. Am I correct? You haven't taken that limitation into account on your calculations.
We haven't taken any specific limitation into account, but within the reimbursement computation, there is a $2 million allowance for ineligible costs that we would not reimburse.
But there was a lot, that includes all of the getting things to the site, all of the infrastructure that has to be off-site.
It includes any off-site construction costs, which notably would be the extension of the gas line. The water line is adjacent to the site across the river, so I'm not anticipating any significant ineligible there.
Now, 69 Killingworth Turnpike, you've apparently made some kind of arrangement with the 36 acres, but not the 0.56 acres that belongs to Matthew Carr. And he was going to be here tonight, but couldn't be. And he's really very anxious about the fact that it appears that you may be thinking about eminent domain for his property. I'd like to have some assurance for the Carrs that you're not going to go to eminent domain to take his property.
Any discussions about that piece of property have taken place in our committee level at the executive session level.
So you won't comment on it.
So
Is that correct?
Well, no, it's not correct. I'm going to tell you.
Okay, good.
We have tried to negotiate with Mr. Carr.
I'm sorry?
We have tried to negotiate with Mr. Carr. And as far as this committee is concerned, negotiations are still ongoing. We put a number in our cost estimate, which represents the town's assessed value of the land. Appraised value, I'm sorry, appraised value. And that's where the negotiations stand right now. As the architect has, you didn't mention it this time, but you skipped through that part. Basically, the piece of property that you're talking about is kind of where the turnaround is scheduled, right there. Now, We could potentially build the school and leave that piece of property right there. That is an option. If the owner didn't want to sell the land to the town, we could still complete the project without purchasing the land. It is our intention to do everything that we can to try and negotiate a purchase price with the owner so that we can include that piece of property.
I'm going to ask you a hypothetical question.
That's
Which,
all
of
I would
course-
say right now.
But if you, hypothetical question, let's say that fails, hypothetically, would you do an eminent domain?
I can't talk about any other
So you-
options
so you
that we
possibly
have
would.
right now.
That's not a committee decision.
I'm sorry?
That's not a committee decision at that point. That comes to the town, and goes to the selectmen whether to pursue or be eminent domain.
Okay, so then I'll ask you, would you be in favor of eminent
We
domain?
have avoided eminent domain as long as I've been in office, and I would continue to avoid it if possible.
Okay. The buildings that are on the site, have you put anything into this estimate for demolishing buildings that are on the, structures that are on the site?
Yes, we have included in the site work.
Thank you for straightening that out. Thank you very much.